The softball team is on a roll in the conference, winning 3 straight CCIW games, keeping their postseason hopes alive. We look at how this team hopes to make a push for the tournament down the stretch on this week's Cardinal Report, starting now. Welcome to the Cardinal Report. I'm Marc Dahlquist. Joining me to start things off this week is head coach for the softball team, Jim Kulawiak. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Coach, the Cardinals had a little bit of trouble early on in the conference schedule, but you guys have put together a string of wins lately over Wheaton and North Park. What's been working, different in these games than in games past?
I think part of it is just a little bit of maturity here in the last few weeks. We are very young, and we've made a lot of mistakes as the course of the season has unraveled. But recently, I think they've improved, and I think they've gained some confidence.
How have you seen this team grow over the season? I mean, you mentioned it yourself that they are a young team with such a young squad. How have they shown maturity, from the beginning to now?
Well, it's one of those things you have to do through experience. You have to play, and we've had pretty much everybody on the team has had a shot, I think, to get their feet wet, and it's a matter now of who's starting to emerge, and a couple of the players are taking hold of that, so it's just a matter of time.
On senior day, you guys had a doubleheader against Wheaton. You opened up the doubleheader with a tough one-run loss. Talk about that game.
Well, we've had a few games this year where it's been disappointing because we've been in the game or had a lead, and we haven't been able to finish the game off. And the Wheaton game was crucial, obviously, and it was disappointing. We had a couple of good chances in the later innings there, and we just weren't able to convert.
Well, the Cardinals had a tough conference loss to the Thunder in Game 1 of a doubleheader before taking the nightcap and starting their win streak. Let's go to the highlight. Coach Kulawiak and the Cardinals getting set to take on Wheaton College in a doubleheader at Schanhauer Field. Scoreless game in the top of the second. Thunder at the plate, and Susan Tubain slaps one to right. Next batter, Shannon Morris grounds one to short, but Ryan unable to get the lead runner. After a pass ball, runners are in scoring position for the Thunder, and a ground ball back to Manja, who has to make a tough call. She goes home, but Tubain slides in safely, and the Thunder score 2 in the second. Offense hard to come by for the Cardinals over the next 4 innings at bat. McCullough allows only 1 hit over the next 14 batters behind some stiff defense by the Thunder. Ryan would get the Cardinal offense going in the bottom of the 6th as she drives one deep and ends up safely at second with the stand-up double. Manja now at the plate with 1 out, drives one up the middle. Ryan thinks about heading home but holds up, and Manja slides in safely to second for another double. Trent Hale looking to get the Cardinals on the board. She's able to make contact with the fly to center. The Thunder pull it in, but Ryan would tag and score. Manja would head to third on the bad relay throw. McCullough now back in the pitcher's circle takes a look over at third, and all of a sudden the inning's over. The field umpire said Manja made a move for home with the pitcher in the circle, and the Cardinals come away with only 1 run. North Central down to their final 3 outs, still down 2-1. Beck would start the rally, getting a duck snort to drop over the second baseman for the hit. Drennan at the plate now, still no outs. Even the Insects want to see the finish in this one, as Drennan beats out the throw and the Cardinals are in business with no outs. But McCullough would get the next 3 batters in order, ending in a Kayla Antle flyout, and the Cardinals drop Game 1 of a doubleheader 2-1. So, Coach, in that game against Wheaton, the Cardinals had the tying run on third, but Velasta Manja was called out. What was the ruling on that play?
In the rule book, it's stated as a look-back rule. Once the ball goes into the circle, the runner cannot feint over at third base. Once she makes a move toward a base, she has to continue on, can't stop. And she was not looking at her, but it was still called. And I honestly have never seen it called without looking at the runner.
Right.
That's why I thought they called it the look-back rule. But it was unfortunate. But the thing was, the following inning, we had 2 on, and nobody out. We weren't able to advance the runners.
Right. So even after such a tough loss, you guys were able to bounce back, and then you go 6-1 in the next 7 games. What does that show about this team's resilience to bounce back from such a tough one?
Well, I think it's a good thing that we've been able to do recently. They've shown some resiliency here to be able to come back, and again, I think the playing time has come into effect, and they're gaining the experience. And we've had some good wins here, especially last night.
One of those players that's been getting a lot of playing time is Vlasta Manja. You're really your go-to pitcher this year. She's already pitched 20 more innings than she did all of last year. Started over 75% of the team's games, but she's really been the backbone of this pitching staff, hasn't she?
Yeah, I don't think that right now her record is reflective of how well she has pitched. She's lost some tough games, and she's hung in there real well, though. And I think she's developed overall from last season with a better assortment of pitches, and she's kept her composure very well.
Well, pitcher Vlasta Manja has been on the rubber the majority of the games for the Cardinals this year, and we take a look at how she has welcomed the workload in this edition of What's the Word?
V is a big part of this team, and it's big that she can pitch 2 games in one night. It's a lot of stress on her body, and she does a really good job working through it, and she works a lot outside of practice to keep her body healthy.
Me and Coach were talking about working out something ahead of time, so right now I'm making sure that I always heat before a game and always ice after game as well as practice, just so that my muscles stay relaxed and I'm loose, and just basically it's another way to prepare for the game, just to be safe, because he pretty much told me he's going to try and throw me almost every game, so work me into the ground a little bit. But I mean, whatever works for the team, you got to do it for the team.
We have like a good combination going, you know, like no matter how many games she throws, she still come out firing, and in between every inning we just talk about, you know, what pitch is working, what pitch isn't working, and what batters are hitting, what aren't, you know, basically everything just working and not. And we try to eliminate what's not, and we try to benefit what's working. So.
Coach, what's the strategy in using a pitcher like Manja? I mean, I know it's not like baseball where it's almost unheard of to pitch back-to-back games of a doubleheader, but it seems that she almost welcomes that.
Well, the thing is, obviously, right now we're a little light on the pitching side of it, and she is strong. In many cases, softball pitchers can throw. They're working with gravity on the downswing with the arm, and in many programs, especially at the Division I level, the #1 pitcher pitches probably 75 to 90% of the games.
Wow.
So it's really not something that's unheard of. We really still try to manage it well, too. We watch the pitch count closely. We try to make sure that she gets her rest prior to the games. And then as the game goes on, we try to take a look at that as well.
And even when she's not pitching, it's always nice to have her in the lineup because she's been one of the better hitters for the Cardinals this year.
Oh, absolutely. She swings a good bat, and she's definitely a force in the lineup.
And we mentioned this team has been very young. What does this team got to do to get better, not just the remaining games this year, but next year as well?
Well, I think one of the things that we've addressed recently is that they need to obviously apply themselves during the summer, in the off season. They can't wait until next fall. So they've got to try to improve their strength and, of course, their skill work. And it's also the coaching staff's responsibility to try to bring in some people that are as good or better than what we have right now, so we can create some depth and competition within the team.
And there's still time left in this season. The Cardinals aren't mathematically out of it yet to get to the tournament, but you will need some help from the teams ahead of you. What's the mentality of this team in the dugout, you know, especially heading into the game against Augustana?
I really think right now we know that we just need to play at a pitch at a time, a hitter at a time, an inning at a time, and not concern ourselves with other people, just try to do the best job that we can.
So this team's really not thinking about the other team's records, it's just up to them to go out and win the game?
Absolutely, just playing for the moment.
So talk about one of the players on your team, Mary Karen, a 4-year player for the Cardinals, one of the seniors this year. What has she meant to this program in her time here?
An awful lot. Mary is one of the most unselfish people I've ever been around. She'll do anything that we ask her to do and do it as well as she can. She's done that ever since she's been here, and she just has a wonderful quality about her. Can't say enough about her.
And that something like that's got to be good, especially with the young team, really instilling the values of the Cardinal program within them.
Absolutely. I think the younger players definitely look up to her.
Well, don't go anywhere, because after the break, we'll be joined by the senior leader on this team and the pitcher with the rubber arm. Keep it right here on the Cardinal Report.